I come through the ring, I notice everybody. I can hear you breathing. I can hear you talking. I hear everything. I hear my friends talk. I don't understand, but I hear them talking. I hear the words. I hear their voices. I hear everything. I see everyone, but I hear more than I see them. No one's focused where they say they don't hear anything. And when you really focus, you hear everything. It's almost like
On a sunny morning in a serene suburban neighborhood, Mike Tyson's daughter, Maya, was on her way to the market to pick up snacks for a movie night with her father. As she drove, a racist police officer, brimming with prejudice, spotted her and decided to approach. This officer, known for his abrasive and discriminatory behavior, quickly made his way toward Maya. He called her a troublemaker, attempting to intimidate her. Despite his aggressive approach, Maya tried to brush him off and walk away, hoping to avoid further confrontation. However, the officer, in a shocking display of violence, delivered a brutal punch to her left cheek, knocking her to the ground. Unbeknownst to the officer, he had just awakened the wrath of a legendary boxing champion. The story was about to take a dramatic turn as Mike Tyson, Maya's father, arrived at the scene, ready to unleash his protective fury. The morning had started peacefully, with the sun casting its warm rays over the neighborhood. It was a quiet day, and Mike Tyson, the former world champion boxer, was enjoying his time at home with his close-knit family. After a career filled with intense battles in the ring, Mike now relished a slower pace of life, spending time with his loved ones. Of particular note was his relationship with his 19-year-old daughter, Maya, who had become a bright light in the Tyson household during her summer break. As Maya went about her day, she was focused on one thing: picking up fresh produce from the bustling local market for her family's well-being. The simple act of shopping was something she took pride in, but her spirit and kindness were what truly made her stand out. Before heading into the crowded marketplace, Maya shared a warm moment with her father. She gave him a swift embrace, a gesture that reflected the affectionate bond they shared. With a cheerful smile, Maya said, "I'll be back soon, Dad. How about I bring you some snacks for our movie night? Popcorn, soda, or maybe chips and dip?" Her thoughtful offer, combined with her sunny disposition, left a lasting impression on Mike. He responded with laughter in his voice, saying, "Surprise me, Maya, but don't take too long. I might get bored without you around." Their banter was a testament to the deep, spirited bond they shared, a connection that had withstood both triumphs and trials in their lives. As Maya made her way through the busy market, she found a parking spot and began her task of selecting the freshest fruits and vegetables. But as she shopped, her eyes fell on a familiar figure: Officer Riley, a police officer whose reputation for abusive conduct and racial discrimination preceded him. His eyes locked onto Maya, and the disdain in his gaze was unmistakable. Maya had no idea that this officer's actions would soon turn her day into a nightmare. As she interacted with a friendly vendor, Riley's grim expression grew even darker. Without provocation, he began to approach her, his footsteps purposeful and filled with malice. As he neared, his face twisted in anger, and he barked, "Got yourself a permit to be loitering around here?" His words were dripping with contempt, and the air seemed to grow heavier with each step he took. Maya, however, remained calm and composed in the face of this aggression. She responded in a steady, unwavering voice, "Excuse me, I'm just shopping, like everyone else." But Riley wasn't finished. His gaze hardened as his anger simmered. "Don't get smart with me," he spat. "People like you always think you're above the rules. You think you can just waltz in here and do whatever you want." Maya, her jaw clenched in defiance, met his gaze head-on, refusing to be intimidated. She knew that he was trying to provoke her, but she was determined not to let him get the better of her. She had done nothing wrong, and she wouldn't allow his racial prejudice to control her. The tension between the two grew thicker as Riley pressed on, his hostility now completely palpable. Maya tried to move past him, seeking to distance herself from his venomous words. But the officer, his frustration mounting, stepped into her path, blocking her way. "Let me see some ID," he demanded, his tone dripping with authority. Maya, caught off guard by the sudden escalation, fumbled through her purse for her identification. Riley's impatience grew. "Hurry up, don't make me repeat myself." Maya, still calm but now fully aware of the injustice unfolding, stood her ground. "I'm not doing anything wrong, officer," she said firmly. "You're harassing me and you're abusing your power." The officer leaned in closer, his face now only inches from hers. His voice dropped to a low, menacing tone as he threatened. "You want to make this difficult? I can make this very difficult for you." Maya, realizing the danger of the situation, began recording the encounter on her phone, determined to capture the injustice for all to see. "I'm recording this," she said clearly, holding her phone steady. Riley, now seething with rage, lunged toward her, attempting to snatch the phone from her hand. In one swift motion, he tore it from her grip and slammed it to the ground, shattering its screen. The force of the action stunned Maya, and she felt a wave of fear rise in her chest. "You're a police officer. You're supposed to protect people, not assault them," she cried out. But Riley, unrelenting, sneered and threatened her further. He then struck her viciously across the face, knocking her to the ground. The bystanders, shocked and horrified by the brutality of the officer's attack, watched in silence as Maya lay on the ground, dazed and bruised. The fight between Maya and Riley had only just begun, and unbeknownst to the officer, Mike Tyson was about to make his entrance. In the midst of an escalating confrontation, Maya, ever the diplomat, sought to diffuse the tension. Realizing the situation was growing more volatile, she tried to distance herself from Officer Riley's malice by turning away. She aimed to leave the confrontation behind, hoping to walk away peacefully. However, Officer Riley, his simmering anger now reaching its boiling point, stepped directly into her path, his imposing frame barring her exit. Maya's heart raced as she realized she was trapped. Her voice tight with apprehension, she pleaded, "Please, let me pass. I've done nothing wrong." But Riley, his body stiff with hostility, glared at her and retorted, "Oh, you've done nothing wrong? Then why are you trying to run away?" His words were sharp, filled with disdain and a deep-rooted sense of authority, and the threat in his voice was undeniable. "Let me see some ID," he demanded, his tone dripping with control and aggression. Caught off guard by this sudden escalation, Maya fumbled in her purse, searching for her identification. Riley's impatience began to show as he leaned in, his voice growing more commanding. "Hurry up. Don't make me repeat myself." A sense of dread washed over Maya as she felt the weight of the situation shift. But she was no stranger to injustice, and drawing on her inner strength, she refused to be intimidated. She squared her shoulders and looked Riley directly in the eye, her voice firm with conviction. "I'm not doing anything wrong, officer. You're harassing me. You're abusing your power. I've done nothing to warrant this treatment." Riley, undeterred by her defiance, stepped even closer. His face was mere inches from hers now, his breath hot against her skin, his voice lowered to a menacing growl. "You want to make this difficult? I can make this very difficult for you." As the anger in Riley's words ignited into a furious rage, the air around them seemed to thicken, filled with tension. The surrounding shoppers, once unaware of the full extent of the confrontation, now murmured anxiously, their whispers rising as the unease grew within the market. Maya, fully aware of the dangerous turn the situation had taken, reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. She knew that documenting the incident was the only way to ensure the truth would be known. Her movements were swift, confident, and purposeful, showing no sign of the fear that churned deep in her stomach. As she began recording, she made sure her voice was clear and unwavering. "I'm recording this," she stated, not giving an inch to the officer's threats. Riley's face twisted into a scowl, his fury burning brighter. "Put that phone down," he hissed, his voice dripping with venom. "You don't want this to go any further." But Maya, resolute in her defiance, didn't flinch. She held her phone steady, her gaze locked with his, unyielding and determined. Her firm grip on the phone was not just about capturing the moment, but about standing up against the injustice she was experiencing. She would not back down. Frustrated by her resistance, Riley's patience snapped. With a sudden, violent motion, he lunged toward her. His hand darted out, grabbing the phone from her grasp in a single, brutal motion. Maya's heart skipped a beat as she saw her phone fly from her hand, crashing to the ground with a sickening crunch. The screen shattered, and the sound of the break echoed through the air, reverberating like a bell signaling the final toll of a lost moment. The shock of the action left Maya momentarily frozen, adrenaline flooding her system. She quickly recovered, her voice rising in protest. "You can't do that. You're a police officer. You're supposed to protect people, not assault them." But Riley, his eyes narrowing into slits of anger, sneered at her, ignoring her words completely. "I told you to put that phone down. You didn't listen," he snarled. Maya, her cheek already swelling from the force of the attack, her voice defiant, spat back. "And now you're going to pay for what you've done." The words had barely left her lips when Riley, in a fit of uncontrolled rage, struck her with a vicious blow to the side of her face. The force of the punch was enough to send her reeling backward, and she lost her balance. Her body crumpled to the ground with a sickening thud. The sound of her fall echoed through the market, and for a brief moment, everything seemed to freeze. The horrified gasps of the onlookers filled the silence, the realization of what had just happened settling heavily in the air. Maya, dazed and disoriented, lay on the ground, clutching her face in pain. "Please, someone help me," she cried, her voice trembling. Riley, not even sparing a glance at her distress, growled, "No one's going to help you." His words were cold, devoid of any sympathy, but his cruel actions were not left unchallenged. The crowd, once stunned into silence, began to stir. A bystander, outraged by the scene unfolding before them, stepped forward. His voice rang out, filled with indignation. "Hey, you can't do that. She's just a kid. Leave her alone." Riley spun around, his anger intensifying as he locked eyes with the bystander. "Stay out of this, or you'll be next," he warned, his voice filled with venom. Maya, her body trembling and her mind struggling to process what had just happened, reached up with trembling hands to touch her cheek. The tenderness and swelling were painful reminders of the violence that had been unleashed upon her. Her eyes, now filled with tears, met Riley's furious gaze. The cold reality of the situation finally set in, and she whispered almost to herself, "Why? Why are you doing this?" Maya's voice trembled, laced with disbelief and fury. Her heart was pounding in her chest as the words escaped her lips, but they were met with nothing but coldness from Officer Riley. His eyes, sharp and cruel, glared at her with malice as his voice sliced through the tension like a blade. "Maybe this will teach you some respect. Next time you think about challenging a police officer, you'll think twice," Riley sneered, his words dripping with venom. His contempt for her, and for anyone who dared to defy him, was unmistakable in his tone. Maya, her emotions boiling over, struggled to hold back tears as the pain in her cheek intensified. The injustice of it all burned in her chest. "Respect? You assaulted me. You're the one who deserves no respect," she shot back, her voice shaking not with fear, but with rage. Her father, Mike Tyson, would have never stood for this kind of behavior, and neither would she. She could feel her blood boiling at the very thought of Riley's arrogance. Meanwhile, across town in the quiet of the Tyson household, Mike was savoring the tranquility of a peaceful day at home. The sun streamed gently through the windows, casting a warm golden glow across the room. Mike, now living a slower, more reflective life than the one he led in the boxing ring, was lounging on the couch, enjoying the calm of the moment. But that calm would not last. His phone, resting on the coffee table, vibrated, cutting through the stillness like an unexpected storm. A single notification flashed across the screen, pulling Mike's attention. Curious, he glanced at it, but it was not just a random message, it was a warning. As Mike picked up his phone, the voice on the other end was filled with urgency, laced with panic. The witness's words cut through him like a knife. "Mr. Tyson, listen to me. Your daughter has been assaulted by a police officer at the market. You need to get here right now." The fear in the witness's voice was palpable, and it sent a chill down Mike's spine. "What? Who's the officer? Is she okay?" Mike's voice was tight, his heart seizing in his chest. He couldn't quite comprehend the words, but they felt like a blow to the gut. "Officer Riley, sir," the witness stammered, his words a blur of apprehension. In an instant, the serene facade of Mike Tyson's life shattered. The primal fury that had once propelled him through the boxing ring roared back to life, an unstoppable force fueled by a father's protective instincts. Without another word, Mike snatched his keys from the table, his fingers gripping them so tightly that his knuckles whitened. Riley, he muttered under his breath. The name of the officer responsible for hurting his daughter, sending a surge of anger through him. That fire, once dormant, was now a raging storm. Mike's movements were swift and deliberate as he made his way to the car. His mind was racing, his thoughts a blur of fury and fear for Maya. He wasn't going to let this slide. Not now, not ever. With the roar of the engine, Mike sped toward the market, his mind focused on one thing: getting to Maya and making sure she was safe. When Mike arrived at the scene, the chaos and confusion were overwhelming. Maya sat on the curb, her face marred by a bruise that throbbed with the pain of Officer Riley's assault. Tears shimmered on her cheeks, the pain in her eyes a stark contrast to the fierce resilience she had shown just moments ago. The crowd surrounding her was a mix of shock, anger, and sympathy, with some people offering comforting words while others raged against the injustice that had unfolded before them. "Maya, are you okay?" Mike's voice was laced with concern as he rushed to her side, kneeling beside her. His eyes scanned her face, filled with a mixture of helplessness and rage. Maya, still shaken, nodded weakly, unable to speak at first. The sight of his daughter so hurt and vulnerable made Mike's blood boil. Before he could say anything else, however, the sneering form of Officer Riley emerged from the sea of onlookers. His twisted smirk was like a taunt in the face of the rising tension. "This your daddy? Guess disrespect runs in the family," Riley said with a malicious edge to his voice, the words hanging in the air like a foul cloud. Mike, his eyes burning with fury, stood up and squared his shoulders, towering over the officer. His towering figure loomed over Riley, a physical manifestation of the righteous anger coursing through him. His voice, trembling with barely restrained fury, roared, "What the hell did you do to my daughter, officer?" Riley, emboldened by the volatile atmosphere, played the role of the provocateur with relish. His mocking laughter filled the air, further stoking Mike's fury. "She needed to learn a lesson, and maybe you do too," he sneered. "You think you can intimidate me, Tyson? You're a washed-up has-been." The crowd, sensing the rapid escalation of the situation, began to disperse, clearing a path for the brewing confrontation. The tension in the air was thick, and the atmosphere was heavy with anticipation. With misplaced confidence, Riley lunged at Mike with a wild haymaker, the kind of attack only someone who underestimated his opponent would make. But Mike, honed by years of training, slipped the punch with ease. His body moved with the fluid grace of a predator, his reactions a testament to his experience in the ring. Riley's frustrated growl echoed in the air as his wild swing petered out into nothing, the force of his assault wasted. Mike's poise and agility were too much for Riley, and the officer's feeble attempt to intimidate Mike crumbled. Mike's gaze was ice cold as he stared down at Riley. His voice, chilling and emotionless, cut through the air. "Wrong move, Riley," he said, his words like a death sentence. A hushed silence fell over the square, the tension almost unbearable as Mike, the former heavyweight champion, towered over the cowering officer. His voice, dripping with menace, resonated with the force of an impending reckoning. "You're going to pay for what you've done," he said, his words not just a promise, but a vow. In a single devastating motion, Mike's fist lashed out. The force of the blow, amplified by years of training and fueled by a father's righteous fury, sent Riley stumbling backward. The impact of Mike's punch reverberated through the crowd, and the spectators, sensing that justice was about to be served, erupted into wild cheers. Their voices rose in unison, a chorus of support for Mike's retribution. Some people, eager to capture the moment, grabbed their phones, recording the scene for posterity. Riley, humiliated and reeling from the force of Mike's attack, still refused to back down. His eyes blazed with fury as he grabbed for his baton, swinging it wildly in an attempt to regain control. But Mike, moving with the speed and precision that had defined his career, blocked the blow effortlessly. The sound of metal against Mike's forearm rang out like a challenge, and the crowd's excitement surged. Mike wasted no time. He unleashed a flurry of expertly placed jabs that struck Riley's chest, arms, and jaw. The officer gasped for air, his body reeling from the intensity of the strikes. "Enough!" Mike growled, his voice low and menacing, his stance unwavering. His eyes burned with a steely resolve as he stood his ground. "You think you can hurt my family and get away with it?" Mike's voice was a blade cutting through the chaos. "Not today." With that, Mike drew himself up to his full height, his body a picture of lethal strength. His fists were clenched, ready to strike. "It's time for you to answer for your actions." The inevitable outcome was brutal and swift. Mike's fists came down with the force of a hammer against an anvil, each blow landing with bone-crushing force. Riley, outmatched in both strength and skill, staggered backward, unable to withstand the onslaught. His desperate attempts to fight back were futile, and soon he crumpled to the ground, a bruised and broken figure. Defeat was written all over him, and Mike stood over him, panting with exertion. "You picked the wrong person to mess with," Mike muttered under his breath as he stood over the defeated officer. In the aftermath of the confrontation, the sound of approaching sirens pierced the air. 2 squad cars screeched to a halt, their tires kicking up dust as they came to a stop. The officers, grave and assessing, surveyed the scene, taking in the chaos and the still-gathered crowd. People eagerly showed their phones, the recorded evidence of Riley's assault being passed around. The second officer stepped forward, locking eyes with Riley, whose prone form was trembling in the dirt. His voice was steely and uncompromising. "You're under arrest for assault and misconduct. You're coming with us." Riley protested weakly, his voice hoarse. "He attacked me." The lead officer shot Riley a withering glare, his skepticism plain to see. "We have video evidence that says otherwise." His words were final, and Riley's protest fell on deaf ears. With cold precision, the officers cuffed Riley, the metallic clink of the handcuffs sounding like a final condemnation. As they led him away, Riley's feigned ignorance crumbled, and his rage boiled beneath the surface. His cries were drowned out by the crowd's silent condemnation. Mike, turning away from the scene, found his gaze falling on Maya. His expression softened as he approached her. Without a word, he pulled her into his arms, enveloping her in a protective embrace. Maya, overcome with emotion, buried her face in her father's chest, her body racked with sobs. Gratitude, love, and relief poured from her in a torrent of tears. "Thank you, Dad," she whispered through her sobs, her voice choked with emotion. Mike, his words unwavering, spoke into the silence that had descended on the market square. "No one messes with my family, ever." His declaration was met with a murmur of approval from the crowd, and though the chaos had subsided, the weight of the moment hung in the air, a testament to the power of a father's love and the price of standing up for what's right. As the crowd erupted into applause, Mike's status as a community hero was reaffirmed. The sound of cheers filled the square, echoing the collective support and admiration for Mike's bravery in the face of injustice. The clapping and shouting became a wave of solidarity that washed over the scene, signaling the community's unwavering backing for Mike and Maya. As they slowly rose from the ground, their actions had ignited something deeper, something powerful. Maya, her cheeks damp with tears, looked up at her father with gratitude. "You're a hero, Dad," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Within hours, the footage of the incident spread like wildfire. The viral nature of social media pushed Mike and Maya's story to the forefront of public attention. The shocking evidence of Officer Riley's brutality was undeniable, prompting swift and decisive action. The overwhelming response from the public sealed Riley's fate as he was quickly stripped of his badge. His disgrace became public knowledge, and he found himself under investigation. The very people he once terrorized now jeering as he was led away in handcuffs. The chorus of mocking voices followed him, a bitter reminder of his fall from grace. As the chaotic scene faded from the marketplace, the day's tumult gave way to a calm evening at home. The Tyson residence radiated warmth and comfort. It was a familiar haven for Mike and Maya after the turmoil. Together they sat on the couch, the TV playing in the background, as Maya, still shaken, leaned into her father's embrace. In that moment, she sought solace in the safety he offered, feeling the protective strength of his arms around her. Breaking the silence, Maya's voice took on a teasing tone, her smile returning as she nudged Mike gently in the ribs. "Hey, so remember those snacks for movie night? I'm starting to think you were just looking for an excuse to avoid spending time with me." Mike smiled back, his arm draping around her shoulders. "Oh, really?" Sounds like someone's fishing for a special treat. What do you think, Maya? Popcorn? The scene, in its simple quietness, was a powerful testament to the enduring love and resilience of their family. As the camera pulled back, it captured the cozy furnishings, the flickering light of the television, and the gentle embrace shared between Mike and Maya. This small, peaceful moment, free from the chaos of the outside world, was a reminder of what truly mattered: the strength of the human spirit, the power of love, and the unbreakable bond of family.